I love great conversations. Hi, my name is Angel Jones. Thank you for joining me on 12-minute convos where I help you create a brand of your own unique, real self. Listen in as I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Good night, Tim Garber. How are you going on this wonderful, beautiful night?
It's a beautiful night here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I'm very glad to join you, Angel.
Oh, it's a great pleasure to connect with you, my friend. Tell us, which of your talents is responsible for us connecting at this time?
That's actually a very good question. I am a podcaster in a business sense, and I'm glad to be connected with you so we can chat a little bit about that. But I always tell people, regardless of what I'm doing at the time and whatever my job is, that I'm a public speaker by nature. So I guess you could say that's probably the talent that I go to the most.
Ooh, so you use podcasting for recording your public speaking skills, right?
I did. I did.
Oh, yeah. Tell us what the name of the podcast, well, is what it is. The good thing is the podcast stays evergreen, doesn't it?
So I'm sorry to say that I don't have a current one going. However, in the past, I had two things going. Back when I was working with at Toshiba, we had a podcast that we used for supplemental training purposes, and we called it the Info Desk. I know, catchy title, right? And so we used that so that we could, like I said, we could supplement our training efforts to our retail partners out there, and we would record podcasts and then use them. Or distribute them rather on the various training portals that the retail partners would use. So that was an effective training tool for us. And then because I had access to some nice recording gear, I actually came up with a very short-lived sports talk podcast called, are you ready for this? The Big and Tall Sports Talk Emporium is what I called it. And so it was short-lived, and really more than anything, I think it was perhaps an experimental way to have some fun. I wasn't really taking it too seriously, but again, I had access to some gear, so I figured why not have a little fun with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thread that definitely follows through is that you love speaking. So let's unpack that. Like, tell us about your public speaking profession, please.
So it's safe to say that I got it from my father, who is an excellent public speaker in his own right. So I guess you could say it's genetic. It's something that I've discovered I could do probably starting somewhere in the junior high to high school range, somewhere in there. And it's been with me ever since. And throughout the years, I've always tried to find something, whether it be personal or professional, that would allow me to hone those skills as well as use them in a public forum. And again, in my working life, I've been able to have some success doing that. But I would say that what I would like to do going forward is try to get back to something fun, something like I was doing with Big and Tall. See if I can get back to doing something that wasn't necessarily work related.
Yeah. Yeah, like a vent, right? An opportunity to vent, but not
an opportunity to vent. Sure.
Yeah. Not rant, but vent.
That's right. Thank you, because there is a very clear distinction between the two. Venting is a perfectly wonderful thing. Ranting gets old very quickly.
Yeah, pretty intriguing. Wow. So why will you continue to repeat this skill that you've been using for such a quite while?
Well, I think that to that end, what I do, although I'm currently unemployed, but what I do by trade is I'm a training professional. And so one of the nice things about that is that's obviously the kind of profession that lends itself to someone who's comfortable speaking in front of groups of people, or somebody who's comfortable speaking into a microphone. And so what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to find, while I'm in between jobs, find a way to be useful by maybe putting together a podcast that would help in some train the trainer elements, helping people who are currently trainers now, or subject matter experts who have been put into a training role, to maximize their efforts and deliver the best training possible. And that's something that I'm passionate about, simply because I've been doing it for a long time. And I think that when you can marry the two, when you can marry the passion of something that's important to you and a skill that goes with it, that's obviously a perfect marriage. And so that's something I hope to continue doing in the future.
Yeah, sounds like fun. Well, tell us one other thing that you've done consistently over the last 3 years, Tim.
Wow. Okay. So I knew this one was coming. I tell you what, I'm going to turn that question around a little bit, and I'm going to say I've got a new thing that I'm doing that I hope to continue doing consistently.
Sure.
And the new thing that I'm doing is I've just recently signed on with an organization called Reading Partners, and they are part of the AmeriCorps outfit. And Reading Partners is an organization that partners with under-resourced schools to provide reading tutors, hence the term Reading Partners, for kids who need a little bit of extra coaching in that regard. So I'm working with a wonderful second grader at one of the local elementary schools, and I tutor every week. That this is a holiday week, obviously, but every week I get to go in and actually make a difference doing something real. And since language arts is my background, I was happy that I could do something that again speaks to the skills that I have.
How does that make you feel, Tim?
It makes me feel, it's not all about me, but I will tell you, it makes me feel useful, Angel. It makes me feel very, very useful, especially since again I'm in between jobs. It's an opportunity for me to get out there and actually do something.
Yeah, there's so many other people that may be listening that are in between jobs or who may just have the time, right? Why would you suggest they even consider doing something like what you're doing right now, Tim?
So I'm actually glad you asked me that, because I just very recently, in fact, when I say very recently, I mean like today, I wrote an article on LinkedIn about this, the case for volunteering. And one, yes, I mean, part of it could be that, you could volunteer and you could find a passion and actually make a career out of it. I've been an adult in corporate education for a lot of years now, but this is something that's at least giving me the opportunity to explore, maybe making the pivot to traditional education and making a career out of that. The second thing, Angel, would be that sense of community. We live in a crazy world right now, politically, socially, economically. It's the old Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times, and they're just a little too interesting in a lot of regard. But and it's easy for us to lose that sense of place. Volunteering can give that back to you, can give you that anchor and that sense of community. And then finally, make a difference where and when it's needed. It doesn't take much. A little bit of volunteering goes a long way, and then maybe you give someone else the opportunity down the road to pay that forward. So that's really the case for volunteering, regardless of your situation.
There we go, amazing audience. Tim Garber bringing the value. Love it, love it, love it. Tim, let's switch gears for a moment now. Let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Tim, what is your earliest childhood memory?
Oh, man, my earliest childhood memory is when I was very, very young, probably like around 3 years old. My parents had bought me one of those spring-loaded rocking horses, otherwise known as a spring horse, and I rode that thing to death. The first thing I would do when I would get up in the morning is I would go downstairs and I would get right on that spring horse and I would just rock back and forth on that thing, and I would do it all day. And I wore it out, and my parents had to buy me another one because I completely rode that other one to death. That is one of my earliest and fondest childhood memories.
Why do you think it's so clear? And does it connect to who you are right now?
Oh boy, I'm not even sure. That's a very good question. I'm not even sure it's that deep. I think really it's just a little piece of the past that was just something that I enjoyed at the time. And it's something that just kind of stuck with me. Now, I won't say that it's necessarily connected to anything I am or that I do now, but it doesn't always have to be about that. Sometimes a happy memory can just be a nice little piece of artwork that hangs on the wall, and it's only there to exist.
Yeah. Well, can I offer an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind?
Hit me.
I love the idea of abundance. I in the podcasting world, I'm doing I do a lot of conversations, and there was a place where I once thought, I'm going to keep this episode, I'll keep this, and I'll keep it for the next week, and that definitely has a value, most definitely, right? But I just wanted to attempt to function in an abundance and an abundance mindset and see where that carries me. And as a child, it is fascinating to me that you, my friend, rode that horse till the point you needed to get another. right? And
Yes.
that was provided for you. But what is intriguing, where I connect the dots, is that even when you are on your out, when you are in between jobs, that you would take the time to go and share more, to give more, which speaks to that model of abundance.
That's a nice thought, and I concur, and I appreciate it. That's a wonderful interpretation, and thank you for that.
You're welcome. If we fast forwarded to when you were 12 years old, what was your favorite song?
Oh, okay. See, I was ready for this one because we have to jump forward 1 year. We have to call it 13 years old. It
All
was
right.
1985, and Starship, aka Jefferson Starship, aka Jefferson Airplane, had their big hit song, "Built This City," and it's still kind of famous. I mean, you'll hear it sometimes on old school radio today. And the radio stations in those days played the heck out of that song. And I'm originally from the Chicagoland area, and it just also happened to be the year that the Chicago Bears were real hot and they won the Super Bowl. And one interesting little tidbit about that song was it lent itself to this neat little mixing trick that DJs would do to add a little kind of a radio plug in toward the end of the song. And I think as I recall, the Chicago version was something like "The City by the Lake, the City that rocks, something Red Hot Chicago Bears." I can't remember what they actually mixed that in to the end of the song, and that's one of the things that really made it memorable. But when I was 13 years old, man, that song, that was all the rage.
Yeah, it's just super amazing, like connecting dots again in terms of abundance. I mean, like you produce a song and you record it, and it's amazing how many times it can be sung, right? So it's like over and over and over and over, and still carry an emotional content with it, right? Pretty amazing stuff. All right, Tim. Well, we've arrived at our destination, but before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. So it's yes or no, possibly a bit more. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready, Tim?
I'm ready.
Tim, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
I have. The person that I'm going to pass my skills on to is my son, Joshua.
Are you married?
I am. I'm married with two beautiful children, Joshua, and he's a third grader. He's 8 years old, and Gracie Kate, and she's a kindergartner.
Do you believe in God?
I do.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
I do have. It's a small circle, but I do have an inner circle of friends.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
I try not to.
All
I'm not
right.
always successful.
What about screen time? The phone and the computer, is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
Oh man, I live in front of the machine, man.
Yeah.
I live in front of the machine. It's more than 8.
Tim, if you had to share with us a statement that represents who Tim Garber is, what would you say that is?
Tim Garber is a guy who, at the end of the day, just wanted to do it the right way.
Love it. Tim Garber, this was a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Audience, I would like to say, wherever you are and whatever you are, if you found your passion, continue to follow it no matter what. And if you're still searching, don't give up, because it's going to be right there in front of you when you least expect it.
Tim Garber, my friend, thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
My pleasure, Angel.
Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. Stay tuned for more from our advertisers.
Diabetes is a mountain pandemic. It's a disease that's not acute but chronic. Similar to this rhyming method, I have simplified the definition, the signs and symptoms, and the complications of diabetes for both adults and children in my books, Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes, and The ABCs of Diabetes for Children. These books are available on Amazon.com, and for more information, you can visit my website, poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.